Whoa, about lost it. Hey, welcome back. We are on GFCIs today, and we are going to be covering 3 different methods that you can wire a GFCI. In this scenario, we have a regular GFCI, GFCI Protected Receptacles, and then a GFCI and a string of receptacles that are not protected. So hang on, you might slip and fall if you ain't paying attention. So here's an example of a GFCI. As you can see right here is a test and a reset button. It acts just like a circuit breaker, so if it detects an imbalance between the hot and the neutral, it'll trip. For example, if water got on it, if your GFCI trips, then you must push in that reset button. If you want to test to make sure it's in good working order, you just push the test button and then you'll have to reset it after you. A few things here. You got a line and a load. Your line is always for your wires coming in. Your load is for your wires going out on a GFCI protected circuit. And you have the strip gauge right here, and that strip gauge lets you know how much wire you need to strip off, because you'll be plugging these in the back instead of making hooks and attaching them. Alright, so when wiring a basic GFCI, you're going to have your hot wire coming in or your home run wire coming in. On here, all you have to do is take your black wire and go to the gold line. So the line is for your power coming in. So this black wire will go to the gold or the hot line, and it'll say on the back of your GFCI hot. The white wire will go to the neutral, and then that problem is done. Alright, so here's our first example. This is just a GFCI with one wire coming in, pretty much a dead end GFCI. On here, you want to start with your ground screw. I already got it, but you have this little plate right here. You just stick your ground wire up underneath that plate and tighten it down. I got the box grounded also. So we'll come right here to the back side. I don't know how well you can see this, but you got your line. These are hot wires coming in. They will go to the line. On here, you pretty much just, you do not have to bend hooks. You just strip your wire and then you put it up against the strip gauge to make sure it's long enough, and you just plug them into the back. Okay, I'll start with the neutral wire, the white wire. When you put these in, loosen up this screw a little bit. That way your wire can fit in there easily, because there's a plate inside of here. And what you do is you push your screw in and then just plug that wire into the back right there, and then you'll just tighten it down with your screwdriver, and that plate kind of sucks up against that wire as you're tightening it. Now, make sure you get it good and tight, because they will pull out pretty easily if you don't have it in there tight. Then you'll do the same thing. You'll go to the line, hot wire or black wire. You'll plug it into the back. Make sure that screw is pushed in, that way that plate's all the way pushed in, and then you'll just tighten that bad boy down, and it is done. Okay, so this is your GFCI with one wire coming in. Make sure you give those wires a good pull. Make sure they're not going to come out when you start tucking your GFCI inside the box. The next problem, if you are wiring a GFCI up where you have a GFCI protected receptacle behind it, then you'll have to use your load. You do not have to buy another GFCI. GFCIs run about $15, $20 a pop, so this will save you some money by wiring it this way. So you do the same thing with your hot wires coming in. You take your black hot wire, go to the gold or the hot line side, and then take your white and neutral wire and you'll go to the neutral line side or the silver screw. And then for your wires going out, so you have to know which wires are going out to the other receptacle. You take your black wire and go to the load, hot or gold screw, and then the white will go to the silver or the neutral wire. When you wire up your other receptacle, black will go to gold and then white will go to silver. If you do not know which wire is your hot wire, you have to turn the breaker on, kind of separate these wires and figure out which wire is hot and which wire is dead, and it'll tell you which one will be your line cable and which one will be your load cable. Okay, here's our next problem. Right here we have our GFCI, and this GFCI is going to protect this receptacle like it is just another GFCI. So instead of having to buy 2 GFCIs, you can just wire this one where it protects this one. As you can see, we got our cable coming down feeding this receptacle, and then we're going to act like this is our hot wire actually going to our panel right here. Alright, so here's our GFCI. I don't know how well you'll be able to read the back of this, but we have our load and our line. Our load is for our wires that are going to our other receptacle, and our line is for our hot wires coming in. Okay. As I mentioned before, make sure you push these screws in when they're loose. That way that plate sucks against the wire. Also, you can check your wire against the strip gauge. I can already see that I got about 1/4 inch too much, so I'm gonna trim some of that off right there. So I'm gonna find this is my black wire that is coming from my panel, my hot wire. I'm gonna tie it into this line hot right here, and then I push that screw in that way that plate's all the way in, and I'm gonna tighten that one down. Okay, and like I've mentioned before, after you tighten it down, make sure that you give it a good little pull to make sure it's in there tight. Okay, you do the same with your white wire. I can already see that my wire is a little long, so I'm going to trim a hair off of it. I'm going to find the white line, since this is my neutral wire coming from the panel. I'm going to stick it in the back of that line side, and then I'm going to tighten that down. So anytime that you're wiring a disconnect, anytime you see the word line, that is always your hot wires coming from the panel. Give it a little tug. All right, so these wires are going to be my load wires since they're feeding that receptacle. I can already see that's a hair long, so I'm going to trim my hair off. I'll find my load white, and that is where this wire is going to go. I'm going to stick that in. Okay, see how that's not going in? It's because I need to loosen this screw up a little bit, all right? Because that plate is actually kind of blocking my holes. So I'm going to loosen that up a little bit. Push that bad boy in there, and then tighten it up. Now, if you had a new GFCI, these would already be loosened. This GFCI has been used a couple times, so these screws are about stripped out, worn out. You do the same thing right here, plug it in the back, okay? And that is my hot wire that is going to feed my other receptacle. So we're going into the load hot side. So your load wires are always what's feeding on the back side. So no matter what, it's a disconnect, GFCI, the load is always feeding the back side. So as you can see, I plugged them in. Hot wire's going to the line. Feeding my receptacle is going to the load. Alright, so our final problem, in this scenario, we got a regular receptacle that is not GFCI protected. So I'm going to show you how to wire this up so that this receptacle is not GFCI protected. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to take your hot wires, your black wires, you're going to tap those together, then you're going to have a pigtail, and that pigtail is going to go to the line hot. And then your white wires, your neutral wires, same thing. You're going to pigtail those, and then you'll have a pigtail going to the line neutral. So our final problem here is a GFCI that is not protecting the receptacle. So you might have a string of receptacles that do not need to be GFCI protected, but you got one that does, okay? And you need a GFCI there. So here's how you do this. As you can see, I got my receptacle that is not GFCI protected, and I have my GFCI right in the middle right here. All right. I already have my grounds hooked up here. What you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to make pigtails. A pigtail is you take your two wires. So this is my hot wire coming in. This is my wire feeding my other receptacles. I take an extra, what they call a jumper wire, and I tile these together, okay? So I already got my blacks done. If you have like 3 wires, I always like to use my lineman's bars. So I got my 2 wires that are in my box, and then I got my extra jumper wire that is going to attach to the GFCI. So you take your lineman's pliers and then just twist them together there. And then you can trim that extra little bit off. Okay, and then you can take a wire nut and tap it on there. So those wires are tapped together. They're not going anywhere. You can go ahead and tuck them in. Okay. Now that you got your jumpers you can go ahead and strip those. So I'm gonna cut them the same length. Remember, you got that strip gauge on the back of the GFCI there. I know it's about 3/4 of an inch, so I'm just gonna strip off about that much. Okay, I might have stripped the hair off of too much of that one. So when you do this one, you're gonna attach them to the line side. We don't need the load because that's not GFCI protected. So you'll wire this up very similar to the way we wire up the first one. We already got our grounds done. You'll take your black jumper wire and you'll go into the line, push that screw all the way in, and then plug in the wire on the back side, tighten that screw up, and then you'll do the same thing, line, white wire, and you'll plug it into that white line and then tighten it down. All right, once you got those tightened down, insert it in the box and you are done.